Remain standing for the national anthem that will be performed by Duluth Denfeld High School's Chamber Orchestra. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. To get things started, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker of the evening, 4th District City Councilor David Clanaugh. Councilor Clanaugh took office this past January and represents a Lincoln Park neighborhood where we sit here tonight. Councilor Clanaugh has been a Duluth resident for more than 26 years. He and his wife Tracy have 3 adult children who graduated from East, Denfeld, and Harbor City schools. He's employed by the state of Minnesota's Direct Care and Treatment Division as a professional counselor. His career also includes leadership and service roles with several Duluth area nonprofits, including the Duluth Area Family YMCA, Domniano of Duluth, Chum, and Western Lakes Superior Habitat for Humanity. Please welcome Councilor Clanaugh to the stage for the official welcome from District 4.
Thank you, Jessica. Welcome, residents and honored guests, to this special place of learning and the 2026 Duluth State of the City address by Mayor Roger Reinert. Thank you for joining us this evening, and please join me in recognizing the school and city staff who have made this gathering possible. And before you leave, take a moment to enjoy the remarkable view from the harbor. We're fortunate to have one of the best school vistas anywhere. It tells the story of our history, our ties to the global economy, and the constant movement and mixing of people at the head of the lakes. It inspires not only the senses, but also our understanding and our shared connection to place. My family has lived in Upper Lincoln Park for half of my 26 years in Duluth. Like many, we faced the housing challenges of our city. When Tracy and I were combing the Twin Ports for a home, the process became discouraging. I began revisiting listings and driving through neighborhoods. When I started scaling 27th Avenue West, I immediately recalled my time at Chum helping postal workers with their annual food drives, at times gasping for oxygen. That's when we found a small pocket of homes tucked among a unique street pattern and exposed bedrock. As we explored further, we discovered another unique feature. From the back door, laden with a backpack, you could head up the alley and join a trail that takes you all the way to Canada. Even more surprising, the basement window offered a view of the harbor. Of course, the trade-off is a steep, dead-end alley of exposed bedrock that makes winter mornings a bit, shall we say, adventurous. This neighborhood harbors hidden gems. Sandy and Gary Winkleski, who are with us this evening, have hosted National Night Out for almost 50 years. Bear, foxes, deer, and other wildlife are regular guests at this gathering, along with public safety and other city representatives. Neighbors share produce, lend equipment, and come together during snowstorms to help one another. We also find time for fun, blowing snow to enhance sledding hills for our kids and taking turns hosting get-togethers. Just downhill is a project from my Habitat for Humanity times that I deeply admire, Salam's House, built in a spirit of love and peace through collaboration among Lake Superior College, union partners, volunteers, local businesses, and city staff. It's a powerful example of what a community like ours can achieve. Welcome to Duluth's 4th District, home to distinctive neighborhoods like Lincoln Park, Observation Hill, Piedmont, and Duluth Heights. This district reflects the diversity of Duluth itself in both landscape and people. It stretches from the Lincoln Park Craft District to Inger Tower, from local eateries to the regional retail center. Here you'll find industry along the waterfront, repurposed warehouses, an international airport, semi-rural spaces, streams, dense neighborhoods, and vibrant green spaces. Nonprofits, community centers, youth facilities for sports, and small businesses all contribute to our district's fabric. Like the rest of Duluth, from Fond du Lac to Lester Park, District 4 holds treasures that enrich both residents and visitors. These strengths sustain us as we confront real challenges, especially for neighbors struggling to meet basic needs and build stable, fulfilling lives within our community. It's now my honor to introduce our next speaker, Council President Lynn Marie Nephew. As one of 3 new councilors, I've appreciated President Nephew's welcoming spirit and graciousness. Councilor Nephew moved to Duluth to attend UMD and quickly made Duluth her home. She began her career in tourism before becoming a legal advocate supporting survivors of domestic violence. For the past 20 years, Councilor Nephew has built a successful small business as a real estate agent while remaining deeply engaged in community service, including work with several small local housing organizations to advance collaborative solutions. Please join me in welcoming Councilor Nephew to the stage.
welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. It is an honor to serve as City Council President and a privilege to speak to you as the voice of the Duluth City Council at this State of the City. Before I begin, I would like to recognize my fellow councilors. Public service at a local level is not easy work. It is long hours, difficult decisions, and a deep commitment to the community. Beyond our council meetings, each of us serve in additional roles: liaisons to city departments, commissions, and community organizations, while balancing careers, families, and personal responsibilities. We do this work because we believe in Duluth, and we believe in its future. I want to thank the families, partners, and friends who support us. Your support makes the work possible, and it does not go unnoticed. Duluth is a remarkable city from west to east. We are a regional hub with strong healthcare systems, a diverse economy with skilled trades, thriving small businesses and large businesses, comprehensive educational institutions, beautiful parks, and a tourism industry that draws people from across the country. We are truly a community of riches. From the St. Louis River to Boy Scout Landing to the skate park, to historic Morgan Park, to the Western Waterfront Trail, the Miller Hill Mall, the airport, the aquarium, the depot, the ballet, the symphony, Lake Superior. I could go on and on. And yet, despite these riches, we held on to something just as important. We are still a community. A place where people look out for one another. A place where neighbors help. A place where in the middle of the winter, no one stays stuck in the snow for long because someone will stop to help. This is who we are. And that spirit, that sense of community, must extend into how we govern. Because the strength of our city is not measured in infrastructure or economic growth. It is measured in how we treat one another, how we solve problems, and how we show up for our community. Local government is where that work happens. Your city council is your most accessible form of government. We are your neighbors. We are here to listen, to respond, and to act when we can. Whether it's investing in infrastructure, supporting local business, improving services, or helping solve everyday challenges, this is where government becomes real. And at a time when national and state conversations can feel divisive and chaotic, we have an opportunity here in Duluth to lead differently, to lead with respect, to lead with transparency, to lead with purpose. This year, we are reminded on how important that is. We face chaos within our council chambers, moments where the space did not feel welcoming, safe, or constructive as it could be. So we took action. We updated our standing rules, something that had not been done for far too long. It required time, effort, and honest conversation. We worked through those rules line by line. We debated, we disagreed, we stayed at the table. And at the end, we found common ground. We've demonstrated, even in disagreement, we can move forward with mutual respect and shared purpose. That is the standard we will continue to set. At the same time, we are facing significant challenges as a city. Housing, downtown redevelopment, the future of our skywalk system, the Spirit Valley Corridor, Lester Golf Course. These are complex issues, but there are also opportunities to shape Duluth's future. And among them, one stands out above the rest: housing. We need thousands of additional housing units in the coming years, because without housing, we cannot grow. Without housing, we cannot support our workforce. Without housing, we cannot fully realize our potential as a city. But if we address it, we unlock opportunity. We strengthen our tax base. We invest in our infrastructure. We support our schools. We create space for new families, new workers, new ideas. Housing is not just a challenge, it is the foundation for everything that comes next. This is why the Council has taken steps to reduce barriers to development. We have tasked our planning department to modernize our Unified Development Code simplify processes, increasing flexibility, and encouraging the kinds of housing our community needs. We should be able to stay housed in our zip code at all stages of life. From supporting the missing middle housing to allowing more diverse housing types and promoting walkable neighborhoods. These are practical changes we are hoping to make for a more vibrant Duluth, for those who live here and for those who want to live here. And this work is soon to come. But the future of Duluth is not shaped by government alone. It is shaped by all of us. Because growth requires participation, it requires people to show up, to engage, to be part of the conversation. And it requires something else, a willingness to listen. Too often, we stay within our own circles, surrounded by people who think like we do and share our perspectives. It's comfortable, but it does not move us forward. If we want to build a stronger Duluth, we have to reach beyond those spaces. We have to talk to one another, especially when we disagree. Because more often than not, we share the same goals. We want safe neighborhoods, a strong economy, opportunities for our children, a community we are proud to call home. We may not always agree how to get there, but that does not mean we can't move forward together. In fact, that's where progress begins. So as we look ahead, I encourage all of us, be part of the conversation, be open to new ideas, be willing to listen. And most importantly, be willing to work together, because Duluth's future is not something that will simply happen. It is something we will build, and we'll do it together. And if there's one thing I know about this city, it is that we are resilient, we are resourceful, and we are ready to meet the moment. Thank you. And now it is my privilege to introduce a leader whose life has been defined by service to his community, his state, his country. Mayor Reinert has a rare combination of experiences, ranging from the Duluth City Council, where he twice served as president, to the Minnesota House and Senate, and is an active duty as a commander in the United States Navy Reserve. Mayor Reinert is deeply committed to this community, whether it's strengthening our core city services, investing in infrastructure, or working to grow Duluth's future while keeping taxes affordable for those who call Duluth home. He has approached the role with purpose. Tonight's address is about where we are as a community and where we're going. And there is no better guide to that conversation than a mayor who understands Duluth from every angle, as a public servant, a teacher, a veteran, a neighbor. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Reinert.
Thank you so much, Council President Nephew. And good evening, everyone. And thank you for being here tonight, and welcome to the 2026 State of the City. I know personally I always find it rewarding to see such a strong turnout from across our community. Residents, business owners, neighborhood leaders, city staff, nonprofit partners, and others who all care deeply about the future of Duluth. Tonight we'll have the opportunity to recognize an outstanding city employee. We will add a new citizen to our Duluth Hall of Fame, and we will recognize several great neighbors from throughout our community. But before I get started, I want to also highlight and thank several people who have helped make tonight possible. Again, thank you to Councilor Clanaugh for welcoming us to your district this evening. In each State of the City address, we've asked the district councilor to speak about their district and welcome you all, and I think you did an exceptional job of highlighting District 4 and also personalizing it from your experience here. I also want to thank City Council President Lynn Nephew for her remarks. If you've paid attention at all to City Council meetings lately, you know that she has one of the hardest jobs in town right now. And I want to recognize the city councilors that are in attendance tonight. Councilor Randorf, Forsman, Councilor Desatel, Councilor Johnson, Vice President Kennedy, I saw, he just made it, thank you. And then again, Councilor Clanaugh and President Nephew, thank you, all of you. And I want to recognize a few peer and key partners, a few peers.
Because she did a good job for you when you were investigated for your girlfriend doing your job in the city office. You hired Terry Laird to help you avoid transparency and accountability. Adios. You're selling out Duluth. You're doing a great job, Roger. Thank you.
So to pick back up, as I was saying, I want to recognize a few peer and key partners in our regional work who also made it a priority to attend tonight. I know Mayor Ward is here from Proctor, Mayor Heim from Rice Lake, and also Chairman Bruce Savage from our partners at the Fond du Lac Band. Thank you all for being here as well. This is an extraordinarily challenging time to be in public service at any level. And I appreciate the partnership, leadership, and sacrifices that all these individuals make on behalf of the people of Duluth. I also want to say a sincere thank you to the many city staff who worked hard behind the scenes to make tonight possible. Events like this take a great deal of time, planning, and coordination, and their hard work often goes completely unseen. We get to show up, we get to have events, and they do all of the work that leads up to it. Now, I'm going to embarrass her because I left this out of every single rehearsal, but I want to say a special thanks to Jess Hecher. You saw Jess already this evening. She is my community engagement officer. Jess is the warm, soft, and friendly to all of the more serious in business that I am. And Jess really ran point on all things state of the city. And tonight would not have happened without her leadership. She helped coordinate the details, the logistics, and the planning that made tonight possible. She even brought her husband along, and her daughter might have been one of the volunteers out greeting you. Believe it or not, giving big speeches and public presentations is not my favorite thing in the world. I'm an extrovert in an introvert job. And Jess is so helpful with that, so thank you, Jess. I'm grateful for your leadership, your hard work, and all of your support. And I want to thank especially, and Councilor Clanaugh, thank you for highlighting this, the students, faculty, and staff of the Lincoln Park Middle School for welcoming us into your building tonight and for being such wonderful hosts. It's fitting that for the third year in a row we are gathered in a school. We were at Denfeld, and then we were at Ordine East, and now we're at Lincoln Park Middle School. Because tonight I hope to spend some of my time doing a little bit of teaching, which is how I've spent most of my adult life. And finally, I want to send a thank you to the Denfeld Chamber Orchestra, who started our evening with the wonderful prelude music. It sets a great tone, and we're fortunate as a community to have the talent and dedication of these young musicians. And Jess and I both discovered beforehand that we're all bass players at one time in our lives. So let me start with this. Duluth is strong. We're a resilient city with extraordinary natural assets, vibrant neighborhoods with unique identities, committed public servants, and people who care deeply, you heard it already this evening, about this place. From third-generation Duluthians to brand new ones who just moved here. But friends, the state of our city is being tested. It's being tested by serious underlying fiscal challenges that have been building for years. Aging infrastructure, deferred maintenance, rising service costs, and flat revenues. We're a post-industrial Great Lakes port that has too much of just about everything, and that bill is coming due. It's also being tested by something mayors and elected officials across this country are seeing right now. Back up again. I think this might be a theme for the evening. So, our city. So, the challenge that as I said, the state of our city is strong, but it's being tested. It's also being tested by something we're seeing, and mayors and elected officials across this country are seeing right now: a growing lack of trust in institutions, the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories. I'm here all night. So, as I was saying, it's also being tested by something mayors and elected officials across this country are seeing right now: a growing lack of trust in institutions, the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories, and challenging behavior in our public spaces from both ends of the political spectrum. It is something that is increasingly making these spaces feel unwelcome and at times even unsafe. I know the state of the city should be uplifting and bright and full of soaring rhetoric and promises for multi-million-dollar fancy new everything. But for as long as I have the opportunity to be your mayor, I want to do a few things. I want to do the hard work and tackle the tough challenges that are before us. I want to be honest with you about what we are facing as a community. I want to work to educate you about why we are facing these challenges. And I want to put policy and process over politics. So tonight, I'm going to talk honestly about where we are, about the challenges we face, and about the choices in front of us. The decisions facing Duluth require us to look at things differently. They require us to rethink long-standing assumptions and resist the temptation to just keep doing what we've always done in the way we've always done it. That's the easy button, but the easy button is the wrong one to push. So tonight, while we're together, let's do a couple things. First, I want to provide a midterm update on the 5 big issues. These were the community's priorities when I ran for office in 2023. And they came from over 1,500 one-on-one and small group conversations. They were the big issues that shaped the campaign, that helped bring me into office, and they continue to be the strategic priorities for our administration. And second, I want to walk through the fiscal realities facing Duluth. I mentioned aging infrastructure, deferred maintenance, rising compensation and benefit costs. Having a shared understanding of our fiscal reality is a critical starting point for any honest conversation about our future. I've already mentioned that we have to be willing to do things differently and try something new, even if it makes us uncomfortable. So trying some things new, even when it makes us uncomfortable. And that goes for me tonight with the State of the City presentation. You know, the norm is to stand here at the podium for the next 45 minutes and talk at you. But the truth is, as I mentioned before, I spent most of my life in the classroom, and I'm much more comfortable in that setting than at this podium. So tonight I'm going to take a risk and shift into a little bit of Teacher Roger mode. I want to walk through a few slides and take a little time to explain the issues and the numbers behind them. My goal is not to overwhelm you with information. It's simply to make sure we're all working from the same set of facts. Because math is hard. And Duluth is facing some hard math in 2026 and beyond, which again means we can't just keep doing what we've always done in the way we've always done it. And as I think you'll see, there's simply no property tax large enough. So with that, let's dig in, and I'm going to step away from the podium. So, great, thanks, Britta. We have a basic mission at the City of Duluth. It's to provide effective and efficient core city services at a tax rate that both our residents and businesses can afford and sustain. Or in short, to do the basics and to do them well. So as I said, I wanted to start by talking a little bit about an update on the 5 big issues. So as a reminder, housing at all income levels, growing our commercial tax base, investing in our streets and utilities, revitalizing downtown Duluth, and affordable property taxes. So let's start by talking about housing at all income levels. You heard this from Councilor Nephew. We had a housing study done last fall. Duluth needs some 9,000 new housing units over the next decade. So that's roughly 900 new units a year. And that's from population growth, and it's from increasing our workforce. Housing at all income levels and of all types, especially more density, especially in the more core and urban parts of our community. Things like condos and townhouses, which when we had a stagnant population for decades, is not a housing type that we've created. And it's also a housing type that helps us build on existing infrastructure without having to create new infrastructure, which immediately becomes a liability for the city. It's also a housing type that meets some demographics that we're seeing on the rise in our community. Young professionals, empty nesters, and increasingly folks who want to call Duluth home, but maybe only home for part of the year. Right now, without that kind of housing type, they're buying single-family homes in our neighborhoods and taking those out of inventory for single families who actually need that as a housing type. And inventory matters. When we create housing at all income levels across the housing profile, we allow people to move as their lifestyles change. And that allows mobility in the housing inventory. There was a great report done by the Minneapolis Fed focused on the city of Minneapolis and their effort to create just inventory, all the kinds at all the income levels for all sorts of folks, and how that helped Minneapolis do better than the national average on keeping rents down and housing prices down. So where have we been in the last couple of years? Well, over the last 2 years, we've created almost 800 new housing units within the community. Now, keep in mind, we need to be doing about 900 a year over the next decade to meet what the Maxfield folks told us needs to be our housing goal. And that's just in Duluth. That's not counting our friends in our near neighbor communities. So while 800 is great, we still have work to do. Our staff had a housing summit last fall, inviting in developers, inviting in nonprofit partners, inviting in community members to have a conversation about where we can go with housing in the community. And we have in the pipeline some key projects that are going to help bring more inventory online this year. Of note, the Urbane project in Lincoln Park, which sat boarded up for almost 2 years, will finally be open to residents this year. The Lakeview project downtown will also. Acres on Arrowhead, one unit is full, they're renting the second, and the third one's under construction. And then exciting 115 townhomes as part of the Aris development right off Central Entrance, a product that we need, done with no public dollars, completely with the developer. And what I love is our staff will say it was a great developer to work with, and the developers talked about how much they enjoyed working with our staff. Some challenges: our population is growing again. After decades of being stagnant, we have now added somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 new residents in the community. But without additional housing, what does that do? It puts more pressure on the housing stock that we currently have. Cost pressures, we're all living through inflation, and that applies to building things as well. In fact, construction is more. It's about 18% over the last couple of years versus 13%. To our near neighbors, we're geographically bound. We have Proctor, we have Hermantown, and we have Rice Lake, who share borders with us, and Lake Superior on the other side. Duluth is unique, and it is the only regional center in Minnesota that can't just go out and annex new land. Nor would we want to. It just increases the cost of that infrastructure. We have to look at the land that we already have within our 26-mile by 8-mile wide community. Where do we have opportunities? We have great opportunity downtown as we look at trying to convert commercial to residential, the former Central High School site, and we have the ongoing conversation about the future of the former Lester Park Golf Course. Growing our commercial tax base. In Minnesota, what most folks don't know is that commercial pays about 2/3 of the bill. We have always been a small p progressive state. So our business community pays most of the property tax, not residential. But when residential isn't growing, that means we need even more, or when commercial isn't growing, that means we need even more from residential to make up that difference. So when we grow our commercial tax base, we're able to provide additional revenue for core city services without increasing the property tax levy. And that's when you hear us talk about new growth. That's adding more tax base to our tax revenues without having to raise the property tax levy. So how has Duluth been doing there? We've seen significant manufacturing sector growth. In fact, every manufacturer in Duluth would tell you that they would add more if they could, but they can't find the employees, and they can't find the employees because we're not providing the housing for that. We have this significant $300 million investment in the Sofadel plant. What's especially exciting about the Sofadel project is, number one, it is now making finished product in Duluth. That paper plant that many of us know was on death's door for decades at a time as the paper industry saw substantial shifts, now making finished tissue paper, napkins, paper towels, things like that in Duluth, being stored in Duluth. If you've seen the 13-story warehouse that's going up, and then using Duluth's transportation connections, its rail, its road, the water, and potentially even the airport to shift that product throughout the upper Midwest and as far as New England. Our Atlas business park is almost full. So that presents one of our challenges, finding more commercial sites. We talked about the need for more housing for our workforce. And then some of our great opportunities. Increasingly, our geography and climate. Cold climate is an advantage. We have an advantage of being a place that doesn't have tornadoes or earthquakes or tidal waves. We are a transportation nexus, as I mentioned. And seeing that next step of technology combining with manufacturing, businesses like Bot Crew that are autonomous terrestrial, that are pulling cable under solar fields, that are the automated forklifts in warehouses and things like that. Because of our geography and climate and our transportation nexus, they are choosing Duluth to be their home. Streets and utilities. If you drove here, you know that our streets are in tough shape. And this is the time of year when we notice it most because this is pothole season. So what most folks may not know is the city of Duluth is responsible to plow, repair, and maintain 477 miles of road and street and alley within the city of Duluth. Now that's only counting 2-lane sections. If you count the sections of road that are 3 or 4 lane, that number goes up to 585 miles. Significant number of streets that we're responsible for in the city of Duluth, 26 miles long by 8 miles wide. Now the cost of maintaining that, if we're just talking pothole filling and crack sealing, the little tissue and tar that goes down to help seal asphalt, $31,000 per mile. Resurfacing, so that's chewing the top up and just putting it back down, $700,000 per mile. But a complete street rebuild, which is what many of our streets need, where we actually dig all the way down and redo all of the underlying infrastructure, and usually repairing the underlying water and sewer lines as well, $5 million for 1 mile. $5 million for 1 mile. And again, 585 lane miles that we're responsible for in the city of Duluth. Now, how about our utilities? We also have about 500 miles of water lines in the city of Duluth. They are on average 75 years old. 50% are more than 80 years old. You may remember a major water main break in Underground Avenue in West Duluth that took out 4 lanes of traffic. That was original pipe laid down in the late 1890s that failed. On the sewer side, we also have about 500 miles of underground sewer lines in the city, and they are on average 60 years old, with a third of those being over 80 years old. And you might recall a sewer line failure that allowed raw sewage to go directly into Chester Creek near the park. I know Dave Schaefer is here tonight. Thanks, Dave, for coming. What is the water and sewer line expectancy for well-maintained lines? 70 years. So we're confronted with the reality of a system that in many cases is beyond its expected life. So how are we doing on trying to plug away at that? Over the last 2 years, we've repaired 36 miles of street within the city, 36 against that larger number that I shared with you earlier. We're trying some new models. Where is it that we can actually shrink that infrastructure or use it differently so that we're putting people over cars and trying to create a system that might be less costly to maintain over the long run? Skyline Boulevard near Anger, great example, citizen-led and has been incredibly popular. It's so unpopular that it's, I think, a challenge for our staff to look at where there are other opportunities to do that. The 6th Avenue East rebuild. Kudos to the advocates who are working on that project. When it opened, it instantaneously overnight took a 4-lane road that really divided a neighborhood in half, and frankly was the remnant of a system before the freeway that was meant to move as many cars as possible, as fast as possible, out of our community right through the middle of a neighborhood, and turned it back into something that felt more like a city street and something that felt more uniting. One of my favorite emails this year was from a mother who talked about how she finally felt like it was safe to walk her kids to school over 6th Avenue East again. We've replaced 2,400 lead lines so far. We're on schedule to do about that number again this year, which should get us about 2/3 of the way done with what the city needs to get done. We're working on the regional water treatment plant. You've heard us talk about that as a major legislative ask at both the state and the federal level. And the good news recently, just within the last week or so, is that we've fully funded $23.3 million of repairs to the aerial lift bridge. So top to bottom, overhaul of the lift bridge, including a new road span. And if you walk or run over the aerial lift bridge, exciting new sidewalks that will be less dangerous for both folks in our community with ability challenges as well as just tourists that aren't paying attention to where they're going. Again, challenges are aging infrastructure, decades of deferred maintenance because we simply didn't have the money. Our climate and weather don't always work in our favor. And the infrastructure. We had infrastructure that was built for 107,000 residents, Duluth's peak population, back before 1980, and we're now at around the 88,000 mark. So arguably about 20% excess capacity. Our opportunities are to prioritize maintenance, to rethink that existing inventory, and think of how we can use streets and sidewalks and that other physical inventory differently, and to look at higher density and reuse of that existing infrastructure. Where can we meet housing needs with existing infrastructure that, again, doesn't require us to build new and immediately increase another liability? Let's talk a little bit about downtown Duluth, one of the places that we continue to just be challenged post-COVID and rethinking what a downtown looks and feels like. Again, this is across the nation. This is not unique to Duluth. We're seeing less foot traffic, we're seeing underutilized commercial space, and we're seeing safety and cleanliness issues that come along with that. Now, the exciting thing is that downtown began commercial, it began retail, it then became commercial and professional, but its future is residential. I'm going to give you a couple things that I would encourage you to read. One of the books that I'm about halfway through right now is called Walkable Cities, and it argues, and I buy this argument, that downtowns and more dense urban environments are where a lot of folks want to be able to not have a car, to be able to not have to rely on that private mode of transportation, to be able to walk to things, to walk to a coffee shop, to walk to a restaurant, to walk to work. And we have an amazing downtown that still has the character and architecture that many downtowns have lost due to urbanization. And that downtown is also adjacent to the lake and to so many of our public amenities. The challenge we have, of course, is that we've over time chosen to sever that downtown with infrastructure from that adjacent water front and other amenities. But downtown's potential is to help us meet our housing needs, that 9,000 unit goal that we need to meet. It's also that opportunity to do the higher density that we know we need, that folks want within our community, and it doesn't currently exist. We currently have, and I think folks are surprised to know this, about 1,400 units of housing in the core downtown, Mesaba to 10th Avenue East, 4th Street, down to and including Canal Park. So that's significant. But what's exciting is we have the potential for another additional 1,500 units, especially through conversion of underutilized commercial space into residential. Where have we made progress? The Imagine Downtown Duluth gives us a blue plan. Lots of stakeholders came together for that. We've removed some challenging structures that had been stood in a long time and signaled, I think, the wrong direction that we were trying to go. The Lakeview project is coming online in the near future. And we did a skywalk assessment. No decisions have been made about the skywalk. The skywalk assessment was directed by City Council to the administration to just figure out what the liability is that we have there with deferred maintenance, again, on a 3-mile elevated system. We continue to see lower activity and underutilized space post-COVID. We have perceptions, and frankly, friends, I would say we are our worst enemies on this. The narrative that I will see online about downtown is not the narrative that I feel spending a lot of time downtown. There are definitely challenges, and we have folks in our community that are struggling, but they are not safety issues. There are folks that are looking to connect with services, and we have some great service providers. I especially want to call out Damiano and Chum and UGM and Katie Hogland in particular, who is leading that team and providing much needed care and support. One of our challenges is 83% of that property is privately held. And just like everyone in this room who might own your own property, you have a lot of decisions that you can make with that. We can't just go say, hey, you've got a building that's a third less used or a half less used, you're going to turn it into residential or commercial and residential. Property owners have the ability to say, I'm okay with that. Maybe it's paid for. Maybe half is all I want, and I'm waiting to see what happens in the market. But our opportunities are residential. We have an amazing opportunity with the First Street corridor from Essentia's new hospital back over to the government center. You know, Michigan tends to be our business street downtown. Superior tends to be our commercial street downtown. First Street, I absolutely think, can be our residential front yard of a new downtown neighborhood. And then again, the UGM relocation to be closer to other social services and better coordination from our unhoused service providers downtown. And then finally, affordable property taxes. So many Duluth residents will tell me, because no matter what happens on the property tax statement, City Hall is the one who gets the calls, and usually it's the mayor's office. My property taxes have doubled in the last 10 years. And my response to them is, at least. Honestly, probably more. And that's a combination of a couple things. First of all, we've seen rising property values. As our population has grown and we've not added significant new housing, property values have increased. In fact, we've seen about a 54% property value increase in just the last handful of years within the city of Duluth. We also went through a decade of 9% on average year-over-year property tax increases on just the city portion, and you'll see the city is not your entire property tax bill. So my property taxes have doubled in the last 10 years, probably more than that. And we can see that in the city's revenue. So in 2014, the city of Duluth collected $22 million in property taxes, and in 2024, that number was more than double, at $45 million in property taxes. We did do the first 0% property tax levy in a decade in 2024, just to pump the brakes and allow folks to try and catch their breath on those rising costs. Affordability, as we know, as a nation, is a challenge right now. In 2025, we proposed a inflation only, looked at the last 12 years of the Consumer Price Index, an indicator of inflation within the economy, and proposed that as a reasonable increase for the city levy. The city council, who has an important role to play in this process, decided to bump that up a little bit more, but it still came in at just over 3%. Ongoing challenges. I'll show you this at a pie chart in a second, but friends, a third of the city revenue comes from local government aid. That's money that comes from the state. If you're a professional sports fan, it's revenue sharing. And this is the most politically volatile part of our budget. It's a part of the budget we don't have any control over. The good news is, in the state's last 2-year budget, it decided to not cut LGA, but it also didn't increase it, which means given all of the cost factors in the economy, the effective buying power of that 31% of our budget went down. Our expenses are outpacing our revenue, and I'll dig into that a little bit more in a minute too. Our opportunities, again, to expand the commercial tax base. When we can grow our commercial tax base, we add more revenue at almost a 2-to-1 or more ratio to our residential. And partnering. Our friends from our near neighbors are here. I am so grateful for Mayor Heim, for Mayor Ward, for Mayor Boucher. We have been willing to sit with each other on a quarterly basis and talk about our communities, talk about our community services, and explore ideas of where we might be able to work together, because we know that our residents all live within a 10-mile radius. Collectively, we're over 55% of St. Louis County's population, and generally they want the same services and care a little bit less about who provides them than that they're there. So thank you, Mayor Ward, and thank you, Mayor Heim, for being here tonight. As I mentioned, we're doing pretty well on the property tax side of things. So that's Duluth on the left. The 1.7 represents new growth only in 2024. The 4.9% represents new growth plus that levy that I mentioned. And you can see where we rank with a couple other regional centers in Minnesota, with Minneapolis and St. Paul. Bloomington is always an interesting comparison for us. They're roughly the same population now. For those with long memories, Duluth for the longest time was the third largest city in the state of Minnesota, and we've now fallen to fifth. And we're a little bit away from falling to sixth. But the interesting thing about Bloomington is they're literally half the geography we are. So they have half the infrastructure, less police stations, less fire stations, less miles of road. In fact, they're under 400 miles for total miles of road versus our almost 600. And then St. Louis County, who is an important partner and also somebody that is on your tax bill. So I just wanted to highlight, I always take every opportunity to let people or remind people that the city of Duluth does not get every single one of your property tax dollars. In fact, in the current levy, we're getting about 26%, with 1% being the dedicated property or park levy. And it's important to remember that one of the challenges we have with the dedicated park levy is it's flat. It doesn't adjust for inflation. It hasn't gone up in dollar amounts since it was first implemented under then Mayor Don Ness. So each year it actually goes down as a percentage of the property tax levy and buys less. You can see the school district, they're having a tough budget conversation tonight at the school board meeting, making up about a quarter, and then the county and a couple of the authorities who have tax levy making up the remainder of your bill. So I always kid our partners at the county because I think the city gets most of the inquiries about property taxes, but most of your property taxes actually go in the city of Duluth to St. Louis County. And then what do we spend money on and where else do we get revenue? So on the expense side, we're a people business. You know that if you've interacted with City Hall. 83% of what the city of Duluth spends money on is people. It's wages, it's compensation, it's overtime, it's healthcare benefits, it's retiree healthcare benefits. Far and away our number one expense. And on the revenue side, I mentioned local government aid. Our second largest source is property tax. And then our third largest source is our 1% sales tax, something unique to the city of Duluth. Those three revenue sources combined are 3/4 of where the city gets revenue. So a takeaway from that is working on things like fees for service and some of those other areas is important for us always to consider in a budget, but it doesn't really make much of a dent when we look at our overall revenue. And by department, public safety, 49%, almost half the city budget is police and fire. Add in public works, so streets and utilities, and that brings us up to 60%. Back out that transfers category, and everything else the city does is less than 1/3 of the budget. So here's one of the challenges we're facing. Our expenses are growing at 5% a year. That's primarily compensation and benefits, while our revenue is growing at roughly 1.5% a year. That's new growth in the property tax base. 1.7% one year, 1.4% last year, but roughly about 1.5% each year. Anything else above that 1.5% comes from an increase in the property tax levy, something that folks are very sensitive to. Last year we addressed a $7.3 million budget, $7.5 million budget deficit. And with hard work of staff and support from the city council, we did that without any noticeable impact on outward city services. So real kudos to our finance team who brought forward innovative solutions for us to do that. But many of them were one-time solutions. So this year, we already know that we're heading into this with a $5.5 million budget deficit. Again, rising wages and compensation, 83% of the expense side of the ledger. And when, not if, because we're required to have a balanced budget, we resolve $5.5 million, we will still have a $3.2 million budget deficit facing us the year after. So for my council friends that are in the room tonight, we definitely have some hard work to do in the year ahead of us. Again, any additional revenue comes from the property tax levy, and just to put it in proportion or in perspective, a 1% increase on the property tax levy is only $455,000. So compare that to some of the big numbers that you've seen related to our infrastructure needs. That's why I said at the start of this conversation, there's literally no levy big enough for us to figure out how to find not just this year's solutions, but the ongoing structural solutions that we need. And I thought before I left this, I would just talk about the news of the day. Gas and diesel prices. So fuel prices alone could wipe out a 1% increase in the property tax levy. The city of Duluth uses 182,000 gallons of gas a year and 212,000 gallons of diesel every year. Fire trucks, dump trucks, plow trucks. The estimated budget impact from the increase of just the last 3 weeks alone, if those prices were to stay, again, gas is up, I think, almost $1, diesel is up almost $1.50, is nearly $400,000 within the city budget. And again, a 1% property tax levy is $455,000. So that is real math that is beyond our control. So where do we go from here knowing some of that maybe sobering information? Again, I think we ground ourselves in our core mission, effective and efficient core city services at a tax rate that our residents can afford and sustain. That presents both challenges and opportunities. One of our challenges is structural change. We have to, again, be willing to think about doing things differently. Not just the same thing we've always done in the same way we've always done it, with just less revenue, less people. That is unsatisfactory to our residents, and it sure is taxing for our staff, who continue to try and just do all the things with less resources. That means setting budget priorities. That means being open to new service delivery models, whether that's something the city of Duluth is doing or it's something that we do in partnership. It's thinking as a region. In 1960, Mayor Ward, you'll laugh, Mayor Heim, you'll laugh, because you've heard me say this before. In 1960, Duluth had one neighbor, Proctor. The city of Rice Lake didn't exist, the city of Hermantown didn't exist. Duluth functioned not just as a regional center, but as a super center, a city that provided services for a huge geographic region. But we fast forward, and we now have 3 neighbors that share a border with us, and together we're almost 120,000 people within those 4 communities. 55% of St. Louis County's population, even more of the county's tax base. So we have to be willing to look at and do better with partnerships. With the school district, with St. Louis County, we've done a terrible job of inviting the county in to be partners with us on various things that happen within our 4 communities. With our community partners, our nonprofits, with our business community, with our faith and civic communities. Anyone who's willing to partner with the city of Duluth, we need to be in a position to say yes. And for many years, we haven't been open to those partnerships. We've been the subject matters, we've been more comfortable with having complete control of the programs that we're doing, and that's not sustainable. Those partnerships are how we're going to be able to move forward. So thank you for indulging me on a little bit of a walk through what I think is some of the critical math that we have facing us. The bottom line that I'm hoping to leave you with tonight is that the math doesn't work if we promise everything without also acknowledging the trade-offs. So friends, we can't say things like balance the city budget with cuts, which I hear all the time when we talk about property taxes. But at the same time, say public safety is our top priority. As we discussed tonight, half the city budget is our police and fire department. Add in public works, and you're at almost 2/3. So everything else, finance, planning, economic development, facilities, property, parks, the library, our legal department, Everything else is less than 1/3 of the city budget. When we talk about budget cuts, we need to be honest about where those cuts would come from. Because the largest part of our budget is the same thing that people consistently say they want protected or even expanded. You can't say I want a new 300-acre park without also saying I'm okay with a subpar park system. Right now, we have 162 named parks, 11,000 acres of public green space, miles of trails, playgrounds, bridges, sport courts, say that fast, and skate parks. And combined, I didn't have a slide for this, we have $112 million in deferred maintenance within that system. We should be spending as a community about $7 million every year just to properly maintain what we already have. But in 2025, we spent $4.8 million from both general fund and the dedicated parks fund. And that covered everything, not just maintenance, but our staff, salary, and programming. So we're not coming even close to what we need to be doing to maintain the system that we currently have. You can't say, I want a new downtown public library without also seriously considering it being a regional library. To replace the downtown existing library today would cost $81 million. That was $72 million just 3 short years ago. But again, inflation, 13%. And as I mentioned before, probably higher because construction is coming in at more like 18%. And we have to be realistic about the state of Minnesota stepping in. Recent bonding bill trends don't suggest that the state's going to be a partner on this. It suggests that we're probably on our own. But the 4 communities of Hermantown, Rice Lake, Proctor, and Duluth making that ask collectively, that's a chance for success. I would argue that you can't say I want dramatically better streets and utilities unless we're also willing to talk again about having a street and sidewalk assessment. Before 2019, street and sidewalk assessments were routine. And then we added the sales tax. And that helps, but it helps especially in capturing revenue from our visitors, our non-residents, the folks who spend time in Duluth and use that infrastructure but don't pay for it. Our population is roughly 88,000 people, but on any given day, there's a third more than that in the city of Duluth. And in the summer, it's closer to a half more than that in our community, using those streets, using that infrastructure, not paying for it as property tax or business owners. Plus, property owners benefit directly from new streets and utilities. It increases property value. That's why that has always been a part of the city, of how cities pay for that kind of work. If street and sidewalk assessments are permanently off the table, then we have to be honest about what that means. Slower progress on replacing tough sidewalks and bad streets. And finally, you can't say, I don't want Duluth to grow, unless you're also willing to say, I'm okay paying 15 to 20% more in property taxes every year, because that's the alternative. That's the tough math. We're an aging city with aging infrastructure, and those costs compound each other every year. If we're not growing the number of taxpayers and if we're not expanding our commercial tax base, then the burden shifts to the folks who are already here. And in a city with an older than average population, with a lot of folks on fixed incomes, and with a lower than state median average income, that's a serious financial constraint for many of our homeowners. Strategic growth isn't about growth for growth's sake. It's about stabilizing city finances. It's about spreading costs, addressing deferred maintenance, and still having the ability to make some strategic investments, all without asking residents to absorb year-over-year double-digit property tax increases. This, I hope, has been a candid and maybe a bit sobering conversation about the issues Duluth is facing as a city. The real structural gap between what it costs to maintain the systems we've spent decades building and the current resources we have to sustain and maintain them. But this isn't a challenge unique to Duluth. It's a long-term pattern that older communities across America are confronting. So, Coming back to a classroom analogy, here's your homework assignment for tonight. I think it's my next slide. Yes. Pick up a copy of Strong Towns by Chuck Marohn. It's a practical look at how cities like ours got here, and more importantly, how to think differently about growth, investment, and long-term financial resilience. You know, our city leadership team had a chance to read this book, and the author, Chuck, came and spoke to our team and worked with us. Fortunately, he is from Brainerd, so it wasn't very far away. And the principles are ones that we're embracing within City Hall, but they have to be embraced by folks in our community beyond City Hall. Over the next 6 months, I would love folks in our community to take the time to read this book, to talk about it with neighbors, and to think about what it might mean for Duluth and for our built environment. My goal is to bring Chuck back sometime this fall to have a community conversation about what these ideas could look like in practice in our community, and how we can build a city that is not only strong today, but financially sustainable for the next generation. Now, in closing tonight, I want to touch on another challenge, one that may be even more significant and testing than the fiscal one we face, and that's the loss of civility and respect and tolerance and humanity. Civility, respect, and the kind of community we want Duluth to be are not just the responsibility of our elected officials. They are shared responsibilities. They belong to all of us because we as a community are that antidote. You know, Duluth has something many places have lost. We're a big, small town, and we know that. We love our neighborhoods. We love how unique they are. We love kidding each other about being from the east or being from the west or living over the hill. Or if you're a Park Pointer, you're your own unique identity down on the point. We see each other. We share this place. We thrive on our relationships. That means we have the ability, and I would argue the responsibility, to do better. We can be the ones that don't follow the national trend, but instead lead from the local level, to choose a different path. You know, I recently heard a commenter say that we've stopped finding common ground because we've just stopped looking for it. So let's leave tonight with a commitment to listen before we label, to choose to disagree without dismissing or worse, demonizing. Let's choose to look for where we agree instead of focusing on where we don't. Let's choose to intentionally look for common ground, even when it's not easy to see. I've talked tonight about the challenges facing Duluth, and they're real. The math is real, and they are not somewhere in the undefined future. They are now, this year, this budget. The decisions that we, the City Council, myself, us as a community will have to make will not be easy. We will either pay substantially more for things, or we will do fewer things. What is not an option is to do nothing. Continuing to do what we've always done in the way we've always done it, the status quo. And hopefully I've helped show tonight that there is simply no tax levy big enough to help us avoid difficult choices. Friends, I love this community with a passion. I have spent 21 years in service of one kind or another to Duluth. I am passionate about Duluth. I believe in Duluth. I believe in our big, small town. I believe in us as Duluthians, and I believe in all of us who are here tonight and all of us who couldn't be here tonight because they're living their lives. They're working multiple jobs. They're parents with kids that are in multiple activities. Or maybe they're just finally taking some time to be home with their family after really difficult days. This community is more than capable of facing our challenges, but we must do it together and with a shared sense of stewardship and responsibility, and also a level of respect, tolerance, and civility that not only reflects the Duluth we are, but I know the Duluth we want to be. Because, friends, Duluth is strong, but the state of our city is being tested by our finances and by how we choose to treat one another and interact with each other in our public spaces. Thank you all for being here tonight, for being engaged, and for being willing partners in the difficult work ahead, for believing in Duluth and being as passionate about our community as I am. Thank you very much. And now, the bright and uplifting part of the evening, Jess will get to drive that car and will walk us through the presentation of our Clarence Maddie Award, which is also our Employee of the Year, our Citizen of the Year Award, adding somebody to the Duluth Hall of Fame, and also our Good Neighbor and Outstanding Neighbor finalist. So, Jess, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Reinert. Will you please stay on the stage with me to help present the awards? Thank you. Well, we'll start with the Clarence Maddie Award. This is the highest recognition awarded by the City of Duluth, and it is given to a city employee who has rendered outstanding service to the organization, our community, or both. The award is named after former City Administrator Clarence Maddie. Maddie is most noted for his career that spanned 5 different mayoral administrations. And as noted, this award is presented to an employee that goes beyond their job description, providing valuable services to their colleagues and to the citizens of Duluth. Tonight, the Clarence Maddie Award goes to someone who is known not just in City Hall, but throughout the community for her exceptional ability to navigate complex real estate and land use challenges, and is a solution-oriented mindset. She's widely respected across departments for her meticulous attention to detail, deep institutional knowledge, and steady commitment to ensuring projects move forward. What sets her apart is her practical get-to-yes approach in finding workable paths through complicated legal land and title issues that might otherwise stall progress. As one local business owner put it, she doesn't tell you it can't be done and walk away. She helps you figure out what can be done. She's also an exceptional communicator. Her ability to cut through complexities and keep things moving made the difference for our project. Her work exemplifies the kind of responsive, effective public service that strengthens trust and delivers real results to the community. It also represents the many City of Duluth employees who work behind the scenes tirelessly and with dedication to ensure local government just works. This year's Clarence Maddie Award winner is Danielle Urchevek. Danielle is a senior property services specialist in the City Attorney's Office and focuses on complicated land and title work. She's been with the City of Duluth for more than 13 years. Congratulations, Danielle.
This is the part of the job they don't tell you about. Well, thank you for this award to Mayor Reinert and all of my colleagues at the city. I always say I just go to work and do my job, and I love to do that, and I get to be a part of a team that makes, as Mayor Reinert said, government work. I get to work across all departments on and I've touched almost every project in the last 10 years at the city, and couldn't do it with all of the support from my colleagues and this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'd like to talk about our Good Neighbor Award. In his first State of the City address, Mayor Reinert called on Duluthians to help highlight those in our community who just do the little things every day that make our community work and make our community the kind of place we all love to call home. Last fall, the community was asked to nominate the helpers in their neighborhood for the Good Neighbor Award. The person who quietly checks on an elderly neighbor doesn't just clear their own driveway, but snowblows the entire block. Volunteers to help our youngest Duluthians cross a busy street and get to school. We received dozens of nominations. And tonight we'll first recognize... Tonight, we'll first recognize several of these outstanding good neighbors, and then this year's Good Neighbor Award winner. We'll start with Troy Albvalter. He has been nominated by his neighbor, Katie Jones, for taking the extra step to create a neighborhood environment we are all proud to be part of. That environment includes ice and snow sledding hill in his front yard and a sled track in his backyard. He decorates with Christmas lights and creates his own winter Dunedinville. Every year, he takes neighbor kids door to door to invite the neighborhood to the winter solstice celebration. Katie says Troy has a unique ability to bring people together in every season and to create meaningful connections with our community. Troy, please join us on stage, and thank you for being an outstanding good neighbor. Would you like to say something? Our next outstanding good neighbor is Carrie Battisti. Carrie was nominated by her neighbor, Lynn for being an awesome human being who is considerate, kind, and an advocate for others, and someone who invests her efforts and time in the neighborhood and the community. Carrie can be found daily walking Brighton Beach, the Lake Walk, or Lester Park, picking up litter. She provides rides for neighbors that need assistance and helps with yard care and other tasks. Lynn says Carrie's not just a neighbor. She's invested in the community and contributes in multiple ways to make it better. Carrie, please join us on stage, and thank you for being an outstanding good neighbor. We'd also like to recognize Amanda Podemski as an outstanding good neighbor. Amanda was nominated by her neighbor, Emma Haugen, for being the embodiment of community. Amanda serves on the Leadership Council of the Morgan Park Community Club. She works behind the scenes with communication and event support. She also established the food and toiletries pantry at the club, and she plans the annual Morgan Park Winterfest, which has expanded beyond the club's property in recent years to include the local trail system. Emma says Amanda strives to make sure everyone feels welcome and heard. Amanda, please join us on stage, and thank you for being an outstanding good neighbor. It appears Amanda was not able to join us this evening. So we'll move on to our fourth outstanding good neighbor, Bill Scott. Bill was nominated by his neighbor, Kate Ufima, for being a saint of a man, a MacGyver, and a 24/7 Santa of sorts. There is little Bill cannot fix. He's a problem solver and a doer. He shovels driveways without asking and adds salt when needed. He also provides food for those in need, drives others to work, checks on neighbors that live alone, mentors young people, and coaches youth athletic teams. Kate notes that he's soon to be 80, and he is not slowing down. Unfortunately, Bill did let us know he's unable to be with us this evening, but we thank him for being an outstanding good neighbor. And now it is my pleasure to announce the 2026 Good Neighbor Award winner. Tonight, the recognition is given to Donvita Kennedy. Donvita feeds the community with invitations to eat posted across social media. She started with a table set up on 88th West for anyone who wanted or needed a meal. These delicious meals are prepared by her hand, and she feeds up to 40 people a week. She is self-funding this effort, and her hot meals include proteins, vegetables, homemade biscuits, and yes, of course, homemade dessert. She's expanded her service area and now also delivers her meals from Gary and New Duluth to the Spirit Valley neighborhood and beyond. Some of her recipients are unhoused, others just need a hearty home-cooked meal. Danvita was nominated by her neighbor, Kelly Kopke, for being a truly selfless and for wanting only to serve her community in her own special way. Please join us in recognizing Danvita Kennedy, our 2026 recipient of the Good Neighbor Award. Thank you.
Hey, y'all. First, I want to thank my family, my little loves, because they're always helping me from start to finish with the meals. They help me come up with ideas and things that we think people would love. We've all drove by homeless people and, you know, maybe like, oh, they're just begging or whatever, but you never know what a person has been through to put them in that situation, and you never know what a person is going through. And so just remember that kindness is free. You know, it takes nothing to smile. I've smiled at a person before and they started crying and said that they needed that smile and gave me the biggest hug. You know, it warms the heart. And so just remember, you never know what a person is going through. And y'all can find me on Facebook at Delightful Dinners by Dee Dee, because they're delightful. And I never ask for money, but I do accept food donations only. And just remember, y'all, spread love. Peace.
We'll now move on to the Citizen of the Year Award. For years, the city has recognized citizens for outstanding personal and selfless contributions over a lifetime to the city of Duluth. They have a place in our collective history for seeing need and opportunity and moving their solutions forward. They step in to do the work that others either do not or cannot. These people weave the fabric of a brighter and stronger community. Beginning in 1924, this recognition was done in partnership between the city and the David Winstead Post of the American Legion and was called the Duluth Hall of Fame. This recognition was allowed to lapse for several years, but was brought back again in 2025, and a plaque listing all past recipients now hangs in the foyer of City Hall. Tonight, it is now time to add a new name to the list of inspirational citizens. The 2026 Citizen of the Year Award is given tonight to Sandy Winleski. Sandy lives right here in our Lincoln Park neighborhood, just a few steps away from where we're sitting tonight. Her home is believed to be the site of the longest-running get-together for Neighborhood Night Out in Duluth. And in fact, this summer will mark their 50th National Night Out celebration of friends and neighbors. Thank you, Councilor Clanaugh, for bringing that to attention earlier in the evening. Sandy has also been active in the Harrison Community Club, Lincoln Park Citizen Patrol, Ashbury United Methodist Church. She's volunteered with Lighthouse Center for Vital Living, helped coordinate Lincoln Park's Fund Fest and the Community Center, mentoring first graders at Lincoln Park Elementary School. She delivers Meals on Wheels and spends countless hours picking up litter and patrolling the community. Sandy has also repainted more than 80 fire hydrants, often with paint she has purchased herself. Sandy, thank you for being a wonderful member of our community, and congratulations.
So kind, so kind. Oh, I'm so blessed that so many of you are in my life, and I'm pushing 80, and I'm going to keep going. I enjoy every moment and cherish all your friendships too. So many people helping, and all the neighbors, and we hope to go on to many more neighborhood picnics, and you're sure welcome to come, and many of you people have come, so thank you for your kindness. It's so kind. I'm shocked. So thank you.
Well, folks, we're almost done. But before you leave tonight, I want to ask you to do one more thing. We've used technology as much as possible to be more efficient and responsive, and to help you be more engaged in understanding the issues and the options. To help support that effort tonight, we're launching our new City of Duluth app. It's a convenient way to stay engaged, stay informed, stay connected in the work ahead. And with a new city app, you will also be able to get alerts on city news and updates, apply for licenses and permits, pay your comfort systems bill, report an illegally parked car, or everyone's favorite, report the potholes. This new City of Duluth app will replace the existing resident problem reporter. The app's been a priority for Mayor Reinert since coming into office, and I'm excited to share with you that it is officially operational and available to the public. Head to your preferred app store to download it. You can also scan the QR code up there on the screen. It is already there, and it's ready for you to use. And a big thank you to the City of Duluth team who made it happen. It's been a heavy internal lift, and no doubt we'll need to do some fine-tuning and tweaking as we go along, but staff pushed really hard to be ready for it this evening. And with that, this concludes the 2026 State of the City program. Thank you for attending. Have a safe rest of your evening, and good night.